In terms of energy, we know that our country is currently energy poor. We are importing most of our energy from our neighbors. If we monetize oil and gas properly, we can actually construct a gas to power plant, which will make Namibia energy self-sufficient and turn us into a regional powerhouse. We can even start exporting this power. Also, we have an opportunity to kickstart our downstream industry. Would we look at the commercial river case of the oil refinery, for example? Those are all the questions that we can pose to ourselves. Domestic source of alternative fuel for Namibia's key industries, as I mentioned, molecular background, education and training. There's a lot of opportunities according to the petroleum laws. Companies are obliged to train Namibians or provide towards training of Namibians. We can get the opportunity to harness renewable energies by really creating these synergies with the petroleum industry. So the local content, as the minister has highlighted, is really the tool that will enable that positive socio-economic impact. I'm not going to dive deep into this, but I just want to draw your attention to three key strategies that the local content, which is currently in draft form, is aiming to achieve. So, ensuring the transfer of technology, knowledge, and skills to the Namibians, maximizing the employment and development of Namibians, maximizing the participation of local suppliers along the value chain. So let's have those strategies in mind as I proceed forward, and you will see how this will impact the opportunities that I will touch on in the next week. So the Ministry of Mines and Energy, as the regulator, is the custodian of this policy, and NAMCOR is the is by law the technical advisor to the government, will have that function of providing inputs and from industry side, really helping the government to ensure that this policy is successfully implemented. So I want us to consider a case study. As Joanna has alluded to, we have been, for the past 1.5 years, we have been doing a lot of benchmarking to try to learn from what others have done correctly and what others were supposed to, would have done better. And the idea is for us really to make sure that we don't fall into the same pothole that they fell, and for us to do better. So sovereign wealth funds as an economic diversification tool. We mentioned Norway, where they started their production in 1971. About 20 years later, the government, through Parliament, passed a law to establish a government petroleum fund. Its approach is really long-term investment, having the youth at heart to make sure that these values, that the value that is derived from the oil and gas is preserved for the future generations. In 1996, their first deposit was made, and as you can see on the slide number 4, the fund was focusing on fixed assets and equity. So towards the years, they have established an ethical guidelines and an ethical committee which oversees the operations of the fund to ensure that ethical investment, without corruption, and all of these evils. And they diversified into unlisted assets in Asia, Africa, and also they incorporated real estate and so on. So the moral of this story is that Norway's oil fund is set up with a long-term view, and usually in life we learn that those who succeed are those who have long-term view. And they also make sure that they put policies in place to make sure that the fund is properly run. They have appointed an independent manager for this fund, and the result of all that is that the fund has been growing steadily and diversifying its forecast, such that today it's worth 1.5 trillion US dollars. So you can see only from 1996 up to now, it's amassed 1.5 trillion US dollars. On this slide, on the top right, where you have the green bar, okay, well, green on that view. I want you to recognize something common here, that all these funds are in common. So this is showing the world's largest sovereign wealth funds. Most of these funds that are here are actually funded from oil and gas facilities. Of course, we have the Norway one, which is the top one. We have the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, we have the white one. And we have the Qatar Investment Authority, and all these have in common. They are funded by oil and gas. But we know from Norway, for example, and as the minister was alluding to, that they are one of the most energy transition conscious nation, and in Europe, I'm sure our colleague who's takes care of sustainable energies in NAMCOR can confirm with us that they possess the highest number of electric vehicles in Europe. Yet, most of their wealth is derived from oil and gas. So what this is teaching us is that we have to use our oil resources to create prosperity for our country. So, as you can see at the bottom of the blue graphs there, around 2021, this Norway fund was actually worth about 250,000 US dollars per Norwegian citizen, meaning that the money in this fund is actually about 250,000 times the population of Norway at that point. So, can we replicate this? If you ask me if I'm just waking up, I would say a confident yes. So, I have shared in one of the previous slides the risks and the opportunities that we have to take. And if Namibia follows the good lessons that we have learned from these countries who have done the same, we have the potential and more to actually replicate what Norway and the other countries have done. We are very, very happy to learn that our country has established a sovereign wealth fund last year. And one key data that you will notice that we didn't have to wait for 20 years. We didn't have to wait for 20 years after production. We actually formed this before the oil has been extracted itself. So I'm sure by the time that the production comes, we are ready. Proper governance policies on this fund will be in place, and we will keep up that massive growth. So if you want more information on the Welwitschia Fund, of course, you can go to the Bank of Namibia website, and there you can find its strategies and funds. So these two graphs are showing production profiles. The one on the left is showing the Norwegian historical production of all fields, and the one on the right is showing the Namibian forecasted production profiles of two fields only. So as you can see on the scale in the middle where you see the 400, you can see that our production, our estimated production in two fields only will probably surpass the highest production that Norway has averaged, which was about 1999, 2001. So as our discoveries, you may have noted that we have in one of my previous slides, we have multiple discoveries, but here I'm only talking about two fields. What that is telling us is that we are taking an incremental development approach. So many projects will come on stream pending their positive appraisal, of course, and we expect a comparable amount of cash flows to the government that the Norwegian government has been getting since their production started. What this is telling us is just confirming that answer that I gave you when I just woke up. So what is the potential for the economy diversification? So again, the sovereign wealth fund is one of the most effective tools for economy diversification, and we can take two approaches. We can try to diversify in the energy sector by strengthening it and really using this money from the oil discoveries to make sure that we harness all the potential in the energy sector. And we can also tend to the wider economy and really fund the government agendas. So from the energy perspective, we can put up gas to power. We can actually do value addition to our hydrocarbons by focusing on the midstream and upstream industries, gas processing, LPG, oil refinery, and we can look regionally for opportunities for us to channel that value and reap benefit by tapping into the Southern Africa power markets, gas exports to some countries. We can look at domestic gas and so on. We can also, as our colleague Galenga, who takes care of our sustainable energy school, a little later, we can use the recoveries, the revenues from oil and gas to kickstart our renewable energy space. Elsewhere in the wider economy, we can diversify into building national infrastructure that not only improve the livelihood of the Namibians, but can also be used as a way of government to make income. We can invest this money into nationwide development schemes such as basic electrification, basic water sanitation, and SME funding. I know as young people, you would have very good entrepreneurial ideas, but you don't have funding for the project. So some of this money may be channeled to institutions such as the Development Bank of Namibia, and it will be used to fund innovative use to stimulate other sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, which is really important for us as we try to secure food security in Namibia. And we can also channel it to other facilities such as gas floating and regasification storages, and of course, or we can augment our port capacity. We all know, for example, that right now, DRC and Zambia, there's a lot of copper mining going in there, but they are exporting their copper through other ports. If we improve our rail, for example, then this export can be channeled through our country, and this not only increases the capacity of our port, but also gives our government additional income. So in terms of direct employment, from 2 projects alone, our pre-appraisal estimates are saying that we would expect that these 2 projects will generate about 3,600 jobs in peak. But as you know, we anticipate more projects to come on stream later, so this number will only increase. Direct jobs of over 600. We are talking about bona fide specialists in the oil and gas industry. Indirect jobs and of course induced, which would include things that are not related to the oil and gas at all. This is perhaps the most important slide of my presentation. I would want to invite the youth to really pay attention to this slide. I would start off by saying we should be prepared, as our colleagues have said. If we are better prepared, then we are standing a better chance of taking those opportunities. So we should not only target everyone to be employed at NAMCOR, to be employed at Shell and so on, but we should target, and we should also have in mind the indirect and the induced opportunities that the oil discoveries are bringing. If you look at the center of this graphic, where you have the oil rig, this is where the oil and gas operations themselves are. So this is the guys that are the rig, extracting the oil and so on. So they would, as you can imagine, there will be limited participation by Namibian companies. As we do not, first of all, we do not possess the amount of money to buy these rigs. We do not yet have the skills and technical capacity to carry out these activities. However, as we move outside of this graphic, this is where the opportunities are increasing for local content, for our youth, and for our people, small companies.